Hey there, it's Kat from Big Noggin Baby, and I'm here to show you how to add a bow to your head wrap instead of a knot. So we're going to get started here cutting out our bow, and we've got the fabric laid out with the selvage going this way, parallel to our grain line, and we've got our pattern laying on our fold of our fabric. And I went ahead and I laid down my fabric with right sides together because that's how we're going to sew our bow. So it just kind of removes the step of having to flip it. So if you cut it out wrong sides together, you'll be ready to head to the sewing machine. So we are going to cut along our pattern here. It doesn't have to be totally perfect. That's the nice thing about this project, is that there's a 1/4 to 1/2 inch seam allowance built into the pattern, and so if it's a little bit off, doesn't matter, it's going to end up getting trimmed off anyway. So we've got our bow right here with right sides together. We're ready to clip this together. I like to use fabric clips instead of pins. I find that they're easier to use. And I'm going to clip just on the corners. And I'm going to clip in one more spot, and that is the center of the long side that's not a fold. So the reason I'm doing this is because that's going to mark where the opening is going to be, so that after it's sewn, we can still turn it right side out. And so you need to leave a little opening here, and I'll explain more about that when we head to the sewing machine. All right, so we are ready to sew our bow. I'm going to start on the fold and go across the short edge and turn this corner, and then we're going to go down to our center point that I have marked with this orange clip. And once I hit this center point, I'm going to back stitch a little, and then I'm going to pull it out of the machine, cut the threads, and move the whole piece down about 1 inch to basically the other side of this clip. And what I'm doing is I'm making that opening that is going to allow us to turn the bow right side out when we're finished. Because if you sew all 3 sides, now 4 sides, closed, you'll never be able to have your bow right side out. So you have to leave that little opening there so that you can turn it. So once you've moved it down, you backstitch a little and then continue down that long end, turn the corner, and finish across the short edge back towards the fold. All right, so we've got our bow sewn up everywhere except for that opening that we've created. So we've got this space right here in the middle that remains open so that in a moment we can turn it right side out. Okay, but before we turn it, we want to trim our seam allowance here so that it doesn't get too bulky inside the bow. So just go around with your rotary cutter. I like to kind of trim the corners. Trim those edges. And you don't have to get too close. You don't want to cut across your seam. But you just want to reduce the bulk a little. All right, so we are ready to turn this right side out. So you're going to find that opening, and it should just be about 1 inch, just big enough for you to put your thumb in and start pulling fabric through. And you're gonna turn the whole thing right side out. And at a certain point, I just kind of grab and shake it out. Get all of those corners pushed out. If you want to go in with a needle or a pin, you can kind of pick out the corners, but you don't have to. If you have a little string left over, just trim that. Get all those corners out. All right, So at that point, you're probably thinking, oh, we need to close up that hole. But actually we don't, because it's gonna get hidden at the center of our knot. And so it saves you a little bit of time to just leave that open. It's nice and small enough, and we backstitched so it didn't rip any bigger when we turned it. And we're just gonna tie this into an overhand knot that eventually will get attached to our head wrap. So just gather at the center, cross the tails over, and push one tail through. Okay, kind of center your knot. And if you're like me, you're gonna take some time to make sure everything looks just so. Kind of turn those tails and adjust it until it's nice how you like it. Okay, so we've got our cute little knotted bow now, and this is ready to go on our hat. So if you have your hat already finished, you followed those directions, it'll be ready to attach to the center here. All right, so we're ready to attach our bow knot to our nude hat, and we are going to do this by sending essentially 3 stitches through the back of the knot, and if we're looking at it upside down, because that's how we're going to stitch it, we're going to send 1 through the top, 1 through the middle, and 1 through the bottom, and they're going to go all the way across the back of the knot to secure this to the center of the hat. We're going to be stitching our knot right here to the center where the gathering points meet. And it's gonna cover up, if you closed it up and there's a little knot showing, it'll be covered, so you don't need to worry about that. Okay, so we're gonna start with a single length of thread, double knotted at the end, and we're gonna start by sending that up through from the back, the underneath side of the hat. We're gonna send it up to the top of the gather. You can see where that is right there. Okay, and what we're gonna do is we're sending it up through the back because we wanna hide that knot inside the hat. And we're going to kind of test our placement, and then we're gonna send this thread through that top portion of the knot all the way through its width. Okay, and we're going to pull that through. And you can see now the bow is attached. All right. And we're gonna send our thread back through in almost the exact same spot. Okay, and look for it on the other side. Making sure it's kind of staying in the center portion of the gathers. And we're going to pull that nice and tight. And by sending it back through the same spot, we're making sure that our bow stays centered, because you don't want an off-kilter bow, unless that's the look you're going for, and then go for it. All right, so we have 1 stitch attached. We're gonna go in for our 2nd stitch, going again back up into now the center rather than the top, the center of our gathers, sending it up. And then now through the middle portion of the knot, again, the whole width of it on its back. There we go. And once again, we're gonna send our needle back through in almost the exact same spot, back to the underside of our hat. And this time I'm gonna try and send it more towards the front, because that's where we're headed, is towards the front of our hat. And I'm gonna pull it nice and tight. And I'll note right now, I use upholstery thread because I like to pull nice and tight and I don't wanna risk my thread breaking. So I like to use upholstery thread for this because I think it's tougher. So now we're going in for our last one, right in the front, where this would sit on your forehead and where the 2 halves of the hat kind of meet in the middle. We're gonna again send it up in the middle front now. There we are. Send our needle up. And for the last time, it's gonna go through the width of the knot. There it goes. And once again, you're going to go back through the way you came. All right. And the key at this point, once you've done all 3 of those stitches, is to make sure that it's pulled nice and taut. You're squishing the bow next to the hat and pulling nice and tight. So that way you should not be able to see any stitches right here in the front, or if you flip it to the back, you shouldn't be able to see the stitches in between the bow and the hat at any point. Okay, so if it is nice and tight, we're ready to knot our thread. Just gonna send it through the fabric on the back and then through the loop. And I always double knot just for safety. Okay, and you can trim it here, or you can send this tail through. I like to send it through and then trim it on the other side so that it kind of gets lost in the middle in the folds. All right, send that through. There we go. So there you have it. You've got your bow attached to the hat. Lay it flat, get a good look at it. So now you have 3 options for these head wraps. You can leave them nude with nothing on it, which gives a really cool kind of retro 1930s movie star look. You can do the knot, and now you can do the bow. So have fun playing with this, explore, try different styles, and make sure you tag us on Instagram at BigNogginBaby. Follow us on Facebook and join our Facebook VIP group, Big Noggin Baby VIPs, so you can share all the creations you've made with this pattern. Thanks, have a great day.